And here we are again. Welcome everyone to MSL Code A SemiFinals. This is, of course, Game 3 between Unica and DogSlinger. This time here we are on Neoplanet S. This is the fancy map with the cool ice effects and some Terran propellers built into the ground, because everyone knows that the ground needs to be cooled to be able to keep such a nice icy texture. So the matchup has so far been very heavily in DogSlinger's favor, and it's been quite interesting to see how he's pulled that off. He had some he pulled off a 4-gate, quite well timed. It hit right about exactly at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's only a few seconds off of what was considered ideal back in Wings of Liberty when that was popular. It petered out a little bit, and when he started building cannons in his own base instead of producing a little bit more units. But Unica, either way, was not able actually to defend it. He had produced a whole bunch of drones recently, and did not have enough army or larvae to build in the army, and was forced to build a whole bunch of spines. He did last for way longer than I thought that he could have, making I think a 36-minute game out of a 4-gate. But we'll see how he does here, how he's going to be able to deal with that early aggression that DogSlinger has done in the previous games. And it looks like DogSlinger, instead of going for the Forge first expand, he's going to be going for a Forge here with, once again, his very interesting building placement. And I actually don't agree with this. I would say that if this was out here, he'd be almost impervious to Zerglings already, and then would be able to throw down his natural. In comparison, his opponent here, is still not throwing down a spawning pool. So it's gas, it's going to be gas pool. There we go. So it was, I think, a 14 hatch with what appeared to be a 15 gas and a 15 pool. Now he will be able to get that speed early enough, I do believe, if he starts putting units in. Please, but put the drones in there. Your window of opportunity is closing. Looks like he's not going to worry about it. There, okay, whew, there he goes. He does, in fact, let that other unit go and return its minerals, so they do not disappear. And photon cannons is the wall. Okay, so the logic here, I know exactly what he's doing. This is actually exactly how I played Brood War. But pro tip number 433 for Protoss players. There's a build called the Forge First Fast Expand, and the purpose behind that build is that because you build a pylon here, it works especially well in maps that have small chokes at your natural. You build a pylon, and then a forge, and then a gateway, and maybe one other, and then you build a cannon right about here. And the cannon will be able to defend this wall against Zerglings, against this area. In fact, if you place it correctly, you will be able to shoot at roaches that are shooting at your forge and your gate without actually taking damage. And so it makes this opening very hard for the Zerg to deal with in terms of harassing you. And so for a while, Forge First Fast Expand Protosses were just rolling Zergs. And then Zerg discovered that they could, in fact, take a third base exactly like this. And because the Protoss player is not able to move out on the map, look, it's 5 minutes into the game, and there's no way that they're going to be able to move out anytime soon. The main difference here between a Forge First Fast Expand and this variant of Forge Gate for Cannon and Pylon, then Nexus Expand, is the fact that this Nexus would already be done because this is 600 minerals, and you would not have had to replicate this pylon per se, although the pylons would have to be built anyway. So you would have been able to start the Nexus much sooner, and so be able to get an economic advantage much sooner as well. I do feel like the key thing here is that Unica has in fact identified that this is the at least flavor of build that he's going for, which is a very defensive turtley build. And the correct move there is to take that third hatch. I've told the story once, I will tell it again. Back in the early days of Wings of Liberty, Zerg players did not feel like the game was balanced, and they felt like Colossi were these terrible, scary units that they just simply could not win against. In fact, the famous American Zerg player, Idra, even had a show with a couple other casters that he called and it was about imbalances in the game, and the first episode was, surprise, surprise, about Colossi. Surprisingly, and when I say surprisingly, this is once again with my internet sarcasm voice, surprisingly, Blizzard did nothing in terms of balancing Colossi. What instead happened was the metagame shifted. And the metagame, for those of you that are not super hardcore Starcraft nerds, I first recommend that you become a super hardcore Starcraft nerd and watch the WCS America Finals. They can be found on YouTube under the official MLG channel, which is official MLG SC2. Some excellent games there. Hero, Moonglade, Alicia, Revival, Ryung, a whole bunch of really big names. Anyway, the main point here is that the metagame changed, and the Zerg decided that they would take a third base while the Protoss couldn't do anything. And then Zerg became super powerful, especially towards the end of Wings of Liberty. I would actually say that the Zerg were, in fact, the most powerful race. Broodlord Infestor was nearly impenetrable, and it was brutal in basically every single matchup. Good placement here on the evolution chambers. Once again, those are not eBays, although they serve the same purpose to upgrade your units, hence the Freudian slip. Warp Gate, I think, allowing these units to poke outside where they otherwise could not. Twilight Council, probably going to be for Blink. If I was going to be... Oh, it's going to wall... that's painful. I only say that because this cannon did nothing more than do its job, and then everyone shot it. It's got to be brutal. Good placement here from the Zergling, able to keep watch. And another thing I want to point out is look at the huge economy difference between Unica and DogSlinger. Part of this is because this is a gold expansion, and gold expansions give you more minerals per second. That's the only difference, actually. But the other thing is that he was able to get those expansions down earlier, and DogSlinger had a delayed expansion because of the cannons. And now he's down in workers. So, just something to be aware of. We do have upgrades going down for both players, finally getting not having enough economy to actually be able to do things. And we do, in fact, have +1 weapons almost done, and we do have Charge. I'm actually surprised to see Charge instead of Blink, given that he had only produced Stalkers up until this point. And he has seemed to favor Stalkers in terms of numbers in his compositions previously in the game. We do also have a Spire going down for... Did anyone else see that? Which one of these is not like the other? They're actually both the same. So this could be on purpose. It could be a misclick. I did, in fact, watch a game from one of these players, or not one of these players, but in this tournament where the players actually built 3 spires. There is an actual use for 2 spires. That is to get double ups on your air units. However, there's no argument for 3 spires, as there's not that many upgrades, and it's just simply a waste of money. And as there's not upgrades going down on this one, he's either waiting to sync up the upgrades, really interested to see if he's going to sync up upgrades, or if he's just going to feel bad that he didn't cancel a building. We do have the rocks being taken down out here by the Protoss player, DogSlinger, and the creep spread now finally starting to get all over the place. And interesting, he's going for really high infestor count. Infestors are still very good units. They have been nerfed somewhat slightly. The biggest difference is that fungal growth now shoots an actual projectile. And because it takes time, it actually means that you can dodge it because you can see it. You could grab and start to move units out of the way, and it makes it much less effective in terms of engagements. So that's why you saw a little bit of a lack of infestors for a little while in Heart of the Swarm, as people didn't know if they actually still had a use. Whereas Wings of Liberty, once you had infestors, you're fine, is basically what happens. Because fungal growth, if you're not familiar with all of the spells of StarCraft, because who would, other than nerds like myself and anyone else that plays way too much, fungal growth is like Sonic Storm, meaning it's a damage over time area spell, but in this case, it actually holds them in place. And it looks like here, in fungal growth, going to go down. These units not going to be able to bunch up, not going to be able to get engagement here. Some of these infestors actually walking right in front. They will be taken out, but these roaches here are actually going to be the big problem. Excellent fungal growth there. We're going to see a really ugly-looking infested Terran pop out. Ugh, so gross. And these units will be forced back because of these Dark Templars. That's actually something that we've seen DogSlinger favor in every single game, is getting that relatively early Dark Templar shrine and actually utilizing it, which is a little bit scary. And the big thing here, DogSlinger still does not know that his opponent has taken either of these 2 bases. He's got to be wondering, where in the world... Actually, maybe he hasn't seen enough army. The biggest tell is that he's got huge amounts of gas, although that could be off of any 3 normal bases. We also do see Unica floating quite a bit of minerals. What happens when you're not used to having... Oh, that's cute. Gonna throw down an infested Terran just in case there's something up there to shoot at you. There was, in fact, nothing. And it looks like this base will fall very quickly. The cannon was there to help defend, but against that number of roaches, they're not going to be enough. Neither are these stalkers. The Dark Templar here also not going to be able to get much work done because that Overseer's there. If he could focus down that Overseer, the Dark Templar could help out. But with 2 Overseers, there's not going to be enough here. And it looks like this base is going to go down very quickly. And in this case, Unica is looking very, very good. I would actually prefer to see these units warped in back here where they will be of future use. These are dead. You guaranteed these Zealots a death sentence. However, he was a lot closer than I thought in terms of normal overall units. The army size, though, is completely nothing, and still continuing to warp in here. I feel like this is actually a terrible decision. If these units were here, he would have 2 warp-ins worth of units and then 3 cannons to help defend, and now instead he still has no army. Is that a... Yeah, all he has is this mothership core. This is his last fighting unit, and it does static electricity type damage. He needs to go back to his Nexus. He needs to save that energy. He needs to save... He should have parked right on top of the Nexus. They would not have followed him over those cannons. Are they going to be able to save it? Yes, he is, just barely. He needs to save up enough energy for that photon overcharge, as that is his only way to defend this at this point in time. In terms of upgrades, actually, Unica's not nearly as far ahead in upgrades as I thought that he would be, or should be. And now, knowing that this is in fact where all these resources have been coming for, this has got to be a devastating blow to DogSlinger. Seeing that there's in fact quite a bit of mining that's been done here, but there's nothing here to defend. Where are those stalkers? The stalkers had moved out. He did not know anything about the size of the army that was there. Time warp is going down, but the fungal growth is going to take that out immediately. Excellent usage of the infested Terrans. There are no detectors here, so these Dark Templar will be able to help clean things up pretty well. And there's no observer anywhere nearby, actually. But there's also no observer, so nothing. Infested Terran burrow? I had no idea. I'd never seen one. They look really funny. Look at them with their little arms poking out. So, continuing to re-wall off, I just wanted to see continued production. Observer, interestingly enough, trying to get those burrowed units. But I feel like the only way that he could stay in this game at all is to go for something... I would actually do Warp Prism play, I think. Once again, continuing to move out into the map, I feel like that's not a good idea. And I actually think I saw for a moment a Dark Templar killing his own Immortal. DogSlinger throwing down the well played, and in fact this is the very Manor version. You can actually see the entire words well played. And I do indeed believe that Unica played very well this game. I think the fact that these 2 bases here were not scouted played a huge part, as the resource advantage was quite large throughout most of the game. And I think the opening from DogSlinger was a little bit botched in terms of he would have been able to move out on the map a little bit earlier had he not invested in some of these cannons and some of the infrastructure that was in a little bit of an awkward location. And with that, he would be able to produce units earlier and perhaps put on a little bit more pressure before Unica was ready. And I really think that's what helped him win the previous game particularly. So either way, good game Unica, bringing the series to a 2-1. We are still not out of the woods yet, so good luck, and we'll watch Game 4 in just a moment.